嗨，大家好，我是小杜，欢迎来到这一期的小杜大世界。今天呢，我要给大家介绍一个人。这个人呢，虽然是英国人，但是我来到了他的家中，看到的这一切都觉得这是一个比中国人还中国人的朋友。看到了一个满江红的灯笼，30功名尘与土，8000里路云和月。他们家的对联儿，落红不是无情物，化作春泥更护花。他们家墙上挂的画是请英国工匠复制的神骏图。通往厨房的道路，海内存知己，天涯若比邻。甚至卫生间里，赤壁赋，这个是装卫生纸的盒子，然后那个卫生纸还是那个英国女皇10块钱的。他们家的台灯是中国算盘式的，然后挂的画道可道，看到了吗？道可道，非常道；名可名，非常名。诗是石狮史，萧寒图。书房里，先天下之忧而忧，后天下之乐而乐。这是他们家的客房，比中国还中国，甚至遮挡这个阳光的这个幕布都是宋徽宗的画。如果不是这样一个家人的照片，怎么可以想象这是一个英国人的家？这就是主人，他有一个好听的中文名字祈立天。他跟我说，这取自大丈夫要顶天立地。他在中国做生意30多年，在这30多年里，他跑遍了中国的大江南北。
Carried that on my back all the way from China through Russia. On this one, I carried that one. I bought it in Datong.
Oh, that's my hometown, Shanxi province.
Datong?
Not,
I love Datong.
My hometown is a little bit south to Datong.
Okay.
But Datong is very close to my hometown.
Yeah. So when I went to Datong, there's still Zhengqiji.
Wow.
Yeah.
You mean the train?
Yeah, the train.
火车。
火车的那个。
蒸汽机火车. Wow, it's a long time. So
and
which...
there's coal everywhere, like pieces of coal the size of a car, everywhere.
Which year is that?
1988.
When I was 2 years old.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember you. I saw you. 在跟他交谈完以后呢，我觉得发现他绝对是一个大神式的人物。他是一个成功的商人，他是一个具有中英两国文化的文化人。他还在努力着促进着英国的学生学习中国的文化和中国的汉字。他自己翻译了中国的古诗，他自己还出了好几本书，都是关于中国的。他被人称为中国先生、中国通。与此同时，他现在还在做着另外一件非常在我看来很伟大的事情，那就是把中国的文化、中国的汉语教育带入英国的课堂中。 Yeah, there are hundreds of millions of Chinese people studying English and capable of speaking English. If you go into a bookshop in China, you will find a translation of Tom Sawyer, David Copperfield, Lady of the Camellias. I once found Nietzsche in a Beijing bookshop, and I was with a friend. I said, do people really read Nietzsche in China? He said, oh yeah, it was really popular when I was at university. I mean, there's absolutely no corresponding level of knowledge in Western society about China. And I think that's a big problem. I think in terms of sort of relationship of ordinary people in China and ordinary people in the UK, whether it can endure and is not affected by the general situation, I think that's quite hard actually, to be honest. Because the view about China that is presented to most ordinary people in the UK is very negative. And it's about narrow issues, which are important. I'm not saying they're not important. But it doesn't really give a general picture of what's really happening. The lack of educational content in the lives of the next generation in the UK is absolutely not to do with any paucity of content. So China's literature stretches back for well over 1,000 years. There are Tang Dynasty and Song Dynasty poets writing about issues that are of tremendous relevance to today, thousands of years ago, or 1,300 years ago. So like refugees, the effect of excessive logging on the environment, homelessness, social injustices, tax evasion, that's all in there in poetry.
huge number of novels. So, Du Fu was a refugee from war, a big problem in Europe. Liu Zongyuan wrote a poem about excessive logging, deforestation, which is a big problem. Bai Ji talks about social inequalities, poverty, and tax evasion. All these things are very, understandable problems. So I've basically chosen poetry as the thing to try to get people to at least have an interest in the way that Chinese traditional thought works. And there are lots and lots of parallels. So Su Dongpo, who's a very, very important poet and writer and thinker, who was alive in about 1070, he lost a son. So he's written an agonizing poem about the grief of losing a son. That happened to Shakespeare. And both those two people used the image of the child's clothing to represent their grief. So Shakespeare used that as a kind of motif in King John, in one of his plays. Su Dongpo uses that in his poetry. So historiographies and philosophical writings, just Chinese medicine. So Chinese medicine often dismissed by Western scientists. So in 2015, the Nobel Prize for Medicine was won by a Chinese doctor who saved the lives of more than 100 million people by coming up with a new approach to malaria using Chinese traditional medicine combined with Western techniques. Chinese people, particularly the leadership, understand the West much better than Western leaders and ordinary people understand China. China's rise has already happened. We don't need to talk about the peaceful rise of China. It's already happened. So in terms of the future, I would hope that we can get some wisdom from Confucius, which is like 求同存异, which is look for the commonalities and just park the differences. Talk about those differences and try and bridge those differences, but just don't make those the most important part of the relationship.
采访结束，齐立天还热情地张罗着给我们做中餐。我在他的房子里感觉到特别的自在，虽然他家在英国北部，但我感觉就像在中国一样。从他家的窗户望出去，不远处就是青山如黛，小溪潺潺。我说，你过的日子真是陶渊明笔下的采菊东篱下，悠然见南山呢。你的世界里一定住着一个中国人，做的事情就是范仲淹的居江湖之远而忧其民。好了，这就是齐立天的故事。如果你喜欢他，可以去看看他的这本书《云氏》。他说他会用这本书筹来的稿费来在英国进行更好的汉语教育。我是小杜，我们下回再见，拜拜。